Order at 3 o'clock today. I'd like to welcome Alderman Mike O'Reilly to the Economic Development Board. Yay. And I'd like to start the nomination and election of the chairperson. Are there any nominations for chair?
I will nominate Bill for chair.
All right. Are there any other nominations?
No others? Come on, somebody.
Are there
I make a motion for a unanimous ballot.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
This is for chairman, all right?
For the chair?
Okay.
All right. Can I have a motion to close the nomination and cast the unanimous ballot?
I'll do.
I'll second.
All right. Turn it over to you, Will.
Oh, it looks like I'm the chairman again. But now we need a vice chairman, so we have to go through this process. So any nominations from the floor for vice chairman?
I nominate Adam Fisher.
Is there a second? There is a second.
Who's the second? I'm sorry.
Mike?
Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are there?
Anyway,
You have to say it 3 times.
okay.
So,
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations?
all right.
All right, so move to cast a unanimous ballot.
So can we have a motion for that? Okay, Fisher and, all right. Do I need to roll call on that? No, it's unanimous. Okay. Okay, we can start.
All right, start on with the minutes. There's 2 sets of minutes in there for March and April. Any questions, concerns? We have a motion from Adam for approval of the minutes. Do we have a second? I have a second. Any other questions or concerns? Otherwise, roll call. Are we doing roll call or?
We can.
Yes.
Bill Senhol, Lyle Lang,
Yes.
Paul Kapla,
Yes.
Mike O'Reilly,
Yes.
Gordon Edwards. He's on Zoom. Adam Fisher,
Yes.
Ken Bargander.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any potential conflicts of interest? Hearing none, any citizen comments? Pretty quiet crowd today. All right, presentations onto the 2023 budget request for economic development partners. So who do we have that's actually, so let's start with Caitlin. Do you have a presentation? All right. Sure, yes, please.
Okay.
Stephen, do I have control with this mouse or do you?
No, you'll have to just let me know.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Because
Okay.
I have it up here.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much for hearing our budgetary request and review from last year. We really appreciate all that you do for downtown Marshfield each year with things like the Facade program, the planters, the small business marketing grants, and opportunities that pop up like the information kiosk. Today, I'll just quick recap what we did last year with our budgetary request from the EDB and move on to our current ask for 2023. Next slide. So last year, we had made a request for the Downtown Business Marketing Grant for 6 businesses to receive $2,000 in customized marketing for their business, as well as just the summer planters for downtown. Next slide. So here are some benefits of planters, much of which coincide with your current goals for the economic development of Marshfield. Planters show both residents and visitors we care about our city and certainly leave an impression of what type of growth potential there is. They're naturally noise dampening. They contribute to positive stimuli that keep drivers alert and increase presence of green space and actually slow down traffic, which is a part of our strategic plan, is to continue to noise dampen and to slow traffic. As we desire to see more new housing downtown, we do need to maintain an attractive public space people desire to live in. You'll see in this picture that without planters, the sidewalks and surrounding walkable areas look very gray and pretty depressing pretty quickly. Planters are an easy way to beautify and create a sense of cohesive space in all seasons, no matter the type of business facade or surrounding use or lack of use of the prow. And planters encourage walking and continued walking. As you see one down the way, it encourages you to keep down the district, knowing that there's more to be seen down that way, signifying a unified, intentional district. Now on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our small business marketing grant program. So small businesses don't always have the time, resources, or the expertise to invest in marketing that truly serves their business in an impactful way. And this program, after some tweaking, has become stronger with an emphasis not so much on teaching businesses how to do it themselves, again, because of that, but doing a little bit more work for them and then launching them into future opportunities to post as they go, however they'd like to market their business. This program is a benefit for entrepreneurs and current businesses. It helps residents and visitors alike see the value currently being provided by local businesses. And as you see on the screen, this is actually a little gathering invitation that each of the recipients received this year. That wasn't part of the original plan, but it was an extra event that was specific to welcome those business recipients at the exclamation office. They received food and just got to meet the people that would be providing the services to them. Next slide. And the next step was to meet with them individually and create a creative brief for each of their businesses. This is an example of war rooms from this year. This is the actual creative brief that they received. All 6 businesses received one of these tailored to their business and their goals. The war room wanted a website. They did not have one in place because they're a new business. So this kind of shows the look and feel that they would like to have, the tangible deliverables that they'd like to have out of this grant program. And the creative briefs will vary anywhere between a brand new website, a website audit and revision, a brand new video for their business that they can continue to post to share the story of their business, branding, photography. Those are all different things on the table for these businesses this year. Next slide. The recipients this year were Chestnut Son of the Arts. Their website's been audited and they'll be doing updates very soon. Discovery Education Station will have a custom video. Good Day Sunshine Record Shop will have a photo shoot. Nut Steep will have a photo shoot. Off the Mat Yoga will have a video shoot coming. And again, you just saw the War Room Museum and World History. So each of these has a corresponding creative brief. So those two asks will again be repeated by Main Street Marshfield again for 2023, and we have an additional ask that we would like to make. Something that continues to come to the surface in a lot of our economic development discussions and our strategic planning is the promotion of downtown. One thing that was really important for us this past year was to explore the idea of branding photography, and we did that through a branding photographer specific for businesses who are seeking to just kind of show the story of their business. So again, we know that there's unmet desires by community members. They want certain businesses in town, obviously restaurants, a full service spa, things like that. Visitors want to know what our current business offering is, but we also know there are excellent experiences to be enjoyed downtown currently that truly people or even locals here for a very, very long time have no idea that they're present downtown. Some people have mentioned in our wine walks who have lived here for maybe 20 years, oh, there's an escape room. Oh, I didn't know there was a bookstore here. Oh, how long has Uptown been here is something that Uptown still hears pretty regularly. And they've been here for about 3 years and they're situated right at that intersection. So just going to show that promotion is tougher than ever for these small businesses. We at Main Street have the opportunity to promote downtown business offerings, entertainment, products, food and drink. To do this, we need to use our social media, our website, and prints, and have a really strong collection of imagery, like the one that you see on the screen right now from this past year's branding shoot. You can see that the images used, you might recognize some of them from our Third Thursdays campaign that we just launched. We had some postcards go out to to have something in print at every single one of those Third Thursday businesses. We use them in posters and we use them in online posts. However, we do need to continue to get new images annually, and I would even say a few times a year because of the nature of business and how seasonal they are. So we would like to continue offering this as a way to promote the quality of life we have to visitors and residents, the entrepreneurs that are shaking things up each year, and the opportunity for new retail, restaurant, and entertainment businesses that are not yet here to show them the opportunity that is downtown. We had a spring visit, but again, to do this well, we would likely need 2 or 3 sessions to capture spring, summer, fall, and then winter again with the Christmas season because of how important that is for our retail and restaurant businesses. The combination of our new branding with this photography this year has increasingly been easier for us to get material out faster and to stay on brand and cohesive in our image of downtown. I can't think of another time where it's been this easy to just grab images and our new branding to provide people an accurate look of what downtown has to offer. And I see this as a foundational point for Main Street and for downtown as a whole. Next slide. So our ask for this year would be for seasonal planters the whole year round. For EDB, it would be funds for flowers, fertilization, soil restoration, and watering. If you're curious about soil restoration, it's because of the salt that gets kind of dumped on everything downtown every single year. All the nutrients really get depleted out of those planters every year. And with the removal, you get a lot of that dirt taken out. So that's just something necessary to replace every single year. Costs are certainly going up for absolutely everything, so it is a little bit more than it has been in years past. The board and design committee would provide oversight, securing an in-kind donation for planting and labor, so that would be at no cost. We'd also be asking for the downtown business marketing program, another $6,000, a repeat of the program as is this year. The only tweak that we see we need to make is it's been very difficult to schedule regularly with businesses. We need to put a deadline on the program being done, actually, to create a little bit more responsibility for the businesses themselves to schedule and get them done in a timely manner. Otherwise, it's been a very big success again in this second year. Main Street would be supplying that matching donor with Exclamation as our partner. They'd be matching in $6,000 in kind. And then we would be overseeing through Economic Vitality Committee with board oversight, board recruitment, and application review for those businesses that may not understand the true value of this, but we might see some needs that they would like to take advantage of. And then we'd also be asking for funds to repeat this downtown branding photography. We'd be asking for funds, and then we would walk with that photographer, really highlighting those spaces that we know need to be highlighted, knowing the businesses that are good with their marketing that might need a little bit of an extra boost, and knowing what spaces are desired from that strategic plan in the survey of the community that people might not realize is an asset that we already have in downtown. That would be Main Street's budgetary request for 2023. Are there any questions?
Questions for Kaylee? Oh, yeah. I've answered all their questions.
Bill,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Ken.
How many planters is there total? I haven't counted them.
Sure. 66.
66 planters total.
Wow. Okay.
And there's always an opportunity for more. We're looking at a beautification plan as a part of our strategic planning to add more. That's a great question. So the planters themselves, when they were purchased, there was a big campaign for sponsoring the physical concrete itself with a plaque. And that happened, I don't know, 10 years ago? A long time ago. And as far as planters being sponsored every single year, we've tried it a few different ways. Every single year, for the most part, summer planters have been provided by the Economic Development Board. We've tried fall and winter through Economic Development Board funds, which is great because we just know it's a guarantee, it's consistent. We've tried piecemealing them out where we're selling them onesie twosies and businesses can sponsor the actual flowers every single year. But it's a lot of time to get every single one of those 66 planters and that investment. Sometimes we'll get maybe almost all of them, and we'll have a business that wants that planter that they sponsored right in front of their business. So you'll get this kind of patchiness throughout the district, and it won't look cohesive, which is why we're making that ask for all the seasons.
So how this works is we usually they do their presentations, we have a chance to ask questions, any concerns that we might have. And then at the meeting next month, the formal budget proposals will come through for approval. Go ahead.
And you might have said this, but can you just remind me, what is the increase this year from last year?
Increase from the seasonal planters
Or, no, for the whole budget?
for the whole budget. Last year, we asked for 12,000 because it was a combination of the summer planters alone and then the small business marketing grant. And it does vary year to year.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions? Concerns, ideas? Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, I think we have some of your information, so have at it.
Karen, we have in the packet, so I'll just have to scroll down,
That's fine.
if that works.
Yep.
Yep.
You want me to wait or?
You should be able to get started. Should be coming up
Okay.
there.
All right, you can flip to the next one right away. Thank you as well for having me, and hopefully we have some good input and ideas as we move forward. So I started with a page. One of the requests was, how does this tie into our 2013 plan? And while that is pretty dated and pretty old, I think some of the information and actions that were in there are still pretty crucial today. A lot of the activities for economic development are really business retention, expansion, attraction, marketing, workforce development, and entrepreneurial development. So those are ongoing. You can't ever stop doing those. Every year you need to do programs that support and increase those. Developing a business incubator and makerspace, and I'll give you guys a little bit of an update on that here very soon. And then really it's about developing relationships with businesses and relationships with all the partners that are involved so that you're not duplicating efforts, but you are working together. Okay. So retention and expansion visits, the recommendation is to do at least 20 per year. And I do far more visits than that. Sometimes Kaylee and I go together downtown. I don't count those as a total business visit retention where we're getting a ton of information, but they might be touches as far as how are you guys doing? How can we help? What are your main issues? And we kind of capture those and look at those as we go along. And you'll see at the bottom, we just have a new service implemented that we're working with Wood County. They actually supported the purchase of that. And as we do these retentions, they will be confidential, but we'll be able to put them in a system so we can look at the whole county. We can really start to identify trends and issues and concerns, and then maybe we adapt some of what we're doing and where we're focusing our efforts based off of that. And the retentions are important for so many reasons. Aside from developing relationships, it's really what are their barriers to growth? Who are their vendors and suppliers that we could attract to the area? And then what opportunities are there for growth? Are they looking to expand? Are they looking to shrink? Workforce continues to be a major effort that is brought forward every year. And then attraction and marketing, people get their information so many different ways these days. So we try to keep things current on websites. We do the economic profile, which is really the demographics of the community, and that's on our website, but we also still print a hard copy of that. We will be doing a Marshfield in Motion book again. Mike's actually going to be working on that with us and Chris. And that really is a publication that I think tells people what makes Marshfield tick. What is our industry base like? We have the Visit Marshfield guide and we have some other things out there, but this really shows our growth, and people can use it for trade shows if they're going, visitors, new resident packets. Eventually we'd like to get them up to clinic and hospital and high traffic areas. There is a state website called Locate in Wisconsin, and I quarterly do updates on that. It could be properties that are with realtors, and then I list the realtor on there, but it could be an individual property. It could be the new industrial space that we're going to be having available. And this is a way for developers that are looking, especially outside of Wisconsin, to look at the state and see what type of properties are available. It could be for storage, lease, or for sale. I'll be working on a new map that we can start to promote those additional acres that are coming on board. And I would like to talk to the city about possibly getting those certified. If you can get those sites certified, then the state will do some additional marketing for you. And it also means that you're development ready. Somebody can come in and they already know where the utilities are or can be placed, where the plan is for the roads. And people today, if they want to move or develop, relocate, they want to do it now. They don't want to wait 6 months or a year for things to be in place. And then I also do work with, I know Josh would refer people to me a lot of times, and I get a lot of calls where people are looking for space. And it's not to compete with realtors by any means, but it might be we need some industrial space. Do you know somebody that has some in their back area? So I regularly try to keep up on that and place calls to see what's current. Okay. And workforce and talent, you guys all know how important and how key that is. And all of us, I think, are working on that and focused on that. But some of the things that we're doing, the makerspace, which I'd like to see if we can get the new manager in to meet you guys, maybe at the next meeting. Just met with Bill today. He is from California. He's already ordering some equipment up at the UW, and he's done a survey with the schools to find out what equipment do you currently have, what equipment would you like to see, and what are the students most interested in, what types of clubs, where are they showing their interest? Because we really want this to be nimble, that it can adjust and adapt and get the equipment that our businesses need and our schools would appreciate in the area. And then we do tours for potential workforce candidates. We have a job board over at the chamber that we utilize, youth apprentice programs, young professionals group, and we have a talent connections committee, which really brings together realtors, the K through 12, Mid-State, UW, a lot of our industries to really talk about, what issues are you seeing and what can we try to do to help you. Okay. And then entrepreneurial, that's another area where I think we can continue to do better. I'd love to see some programming offered in the schools. That is something I met with one of our state reps to say, could we develop some programs that are taught better in schools? I was one of the judges for a 8th grade competition up at Columbus, like a Shark Tank event. And it was so amazing how some of these 8th graders had ideas for a business. They had to put together a business plan. Some of them were horrible, don't get me wrong. It's like they just giggled and it was really not that. But I bet you there was 3 or 4 of them that their whole concept of why they did it, how they did it, and the questions we asked was amazing. If we could continue to do this in 8th grade already, where people are thinking and they're thinking on their feet, they're being creative. And the state was, the person I talked to said, I think that's a great idea. I think we need to teach that and see how we can maybe offer some grants or some programs on that. So through SCORE, through the Small Business Development Center and all of our partners, we continue to offer training, but we also work one-on-one with clients where we can. And if we can't help them, we refer them to other resources that are available. And if you guys are familiar, I know you are, with the Wood County Ready Plan and even the EDB strategic plan, there was a big focus on entrepreneurial development, keeping new businesses. And there's so many nice new businesses opening in downtown and even on the south end of the community. So it's very, very exciting times. Okay. So looking forward then to the 23 especially goals, you guys can read these, but I'll touch on a couple of them. Determine the target audience demographics and current and future workforce needs. So a lot of that can be done through surveys. It can be done through the business visits that we do and, meeting with the HR professionals and the CEOs. So we have a really good idea of what the needs are. And then support efforts to bring in new retail, restaurant, and entertainment businesses. I think that's a focus for all of us, and how can we do that better and do that together? talked about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and then opportunities for regional partnerships, working with all the other entities that are out there and even through the state, making sure we keep up on grants that are available, making sure that our businesses are aware of that. And attracting people, desirable businesses. We work with the state on, we just had an RFP not too long ago for a company looking to come here. And those are grueling because they're typically about 10 pages long. They want a lot of detail, and you usually have about 2 or 3 days to respond. So it's really kind of getting all that information together and hoping that we can maybe make the cut. Unfortunately, we didn't on this last one, but at least we were able to submit something. And we now have some land available that we can do that. And then next. Other ED actions are, again, some of this is a little bit repeated, but we work closely with our agribusiness community, and I think that's important. We overlook them sometimes. A lot of the businesses we have here are related to the ag industry. We see a lot of growth in that area, so we continue to recognize them and did a couple new events this year related around ag. And then webinars, trainings to keep up on what's going on out in the world, what are some ideas and some things we can bring back to the area and share with our businesses. Then we work together with companies looking to expand, bringing new and existing companies here, and then also looking at, can we better utilize opportunity zones, CDAs, or others that are in the area. So again, we don't want to duplicate, we want to just enhance and work together. Okay. So funding request for 2023 for my position, kept that exactly the same as last year at the $47,000. And this really covers my time for attracting, retaining, growing, and starting new businesses, helping to work with workforce. And then the dollars you see beneath that are, we only request those dollars if we actually use them for something. So most years we're not even using that full amount. I think we went down about $500 in our request this year, but it is that there is some money earmarked. So if a project does come up, or again, new marketing for the industrial land and things like that, that we do have some money available that we can partner with others and things like that. So those dollars, if they don't get used, they stay in the pot. And we would typically ask, if it was a bigger ask, we would come back to the group and say, does this sound like something you are interested in or would be beneficial to the community? Well, I am happy to entertain any questions.
Question. I know in the past, we had talked about quarterly reporting of the progress on the items, and I think you've done most of that. Did we do all 4 quarters last year?
Yeah, no, the quarterly reports, I do typically go back to Steve now at this point,
okay.
Steve Bard, and they really are just it's kind of what happened in the past quarter, in each of the areas of whether it's workforce or entrepreneurial or anything like that. So they could be shared with this group. It doesn't go into a lot of detail, but the expenses are also captured on that report.
So for the ones that are on the screen right now, did you use all of those last year, do you know?
No.
Oh.
No. And like I said, it's pretty hard to tell what's going to come up for 2023. And a lot of this we end up actually using Mackey dollars for, because it is related to businesses and, with the due structure and things like that. So, but it could be, is there something new or something on the horizon that this group might want to be involved in? And then those dollars would be there.
Other question? Ideas, concerns, anything? All right.
Thank you.
Nikki, do you have a presentation? All right.
Stephen will bring it up. Thank you for letting me present. I feel like I've presented quite a bit in the last 8 months to this group. So I'm going to keep it somewhat short because of that, just so I'm not repeating information. So this has changed obviously from last year. Before it was just the ask for the Wenzel Family Plaza events and wages. This year, obviously, I made the transition over to the event and program coordinator for the city of Marshfield Parks and Rec. And so just going on, you can go to the next slide, Stephen. Understanding, and again, like Karen said, it's a bit dated, but with the 2313 Economic Development Action Plan, the goal on page 32, goal 3, objective 1 was to create a downtown public gathering space with a water feature. Obviously, we did that in the last, well, since 2019, besides 2020, have kept growing that gathering space with the programming. And so that's where we fall into the Economic Development Action Plan. But I think we probably check off even more boxes with that, mostly with the transition. You can go to the next slide, Stephen. Okay, so just breaking it down for 2022, obviously with 2021, we were able to get programming back up from 2020. We did the concert series, yoga in the Plaza, Oktoberfest. We were able to do some of those events. This year, obviously, we're bringing even more events and activities to the Plaza, which is really exciting that we're able to do that. This gives you a nice rundown of what we have going on. It's probably not everything, but just some highlights to understand how much we are actually programming at the Wenzel Family Plaza. A side note of 2021, we were voted the best live music of Marshfield, which is really exciting. So we're still getting some of those accolades coming in, and hopefully we take that home this year as well. We'll find out, I believe, next week. So as you can see, I broke this down by month just to show you that we really are becoming an all year round space for the Plaza. And then also with the parks as well, when it comes down to organizing and programming. The Plaza, the only month, which I'm sure won't be the case, that we don't have something programmed currently is November. So that's just to give you an idea of what we've been doing. Obviously, our busy months are happening right now. And just to start off the year, we do have Cabin Fever Fest and partner with Main Street Marshfield with that event. And we're actually taking that to other parks as well, which I'll touch on when I get to the Parks and Rec side. We normally don't have anything, I guess we don't have anything in April as well, March or April, I should say, except the skating rink. That is all dependent on Mother Nature when we aren't able to utilize that. But in May, we're starting to do more. A lot of times we try to avoid it only because it gets a little mucky, or it's still mucky in the Plaza. But we were able to utilize it for the United Way Wine Walk, which kind of kicked off that part of this season. And then we also had another event rental, which is different than it has been in the past. June is when we really kick things off right before Dairy Fest. So we had the summer kickoff with partnering with Visit Marshfield and 95.5 WIFC. We were able to turn on the fountain. It was a beautiful day. We had a lot of handouts. Probably over 200 people came out for that. So it was really successful. And obviously people were really excited to see the fountain up and working because it was down most of last year. So it's being utilized, and that was a fun kickoff that we did. June also brings in Dairy Fest. We did activities Friday night in Wenzel Family Plaza with the chamber leading that, but become quite an integral partner in Dairy Fest because a lot does happen in the Plaza. And then with my role at Columbia Part 2, I helped with logistics there. Very successful event, as it is every year. We also did kick off the Hub City Concert Series in June. I'm really excited about this year because we are now able, with funding and sponsorships, to actually start bringing in some really quality acts that we have to book basically a year out in advance. So we are starting to really become a good destination for music in central Wisconsin. And I think that's really important because right now there's a lot of families and people that say, what is there to do in Marshfield on the weekends? Well, we're really starting to change that talk, and a lot of people are sticking around for the Hub City Concert Series. So that's exciting to see. We still really focus on wellness events in the Plaza as well. Yoga with Off the Mat happens every Saturday. And then we also had our third annual Make Music Marshfield event, which it was multiple locations. That's something that I partner with the Chestnut Center, and they spearhead that. And we had multiple locations under Park and Recreation that were utilized for Make Music Days. So that's always exciting to see that. And that's a national event. So it's really exciting to see that that's taken off. Another partner, obviously, I still partner quite a bit with Main Street Marshfield and Kaylee. We're doing Third Thursdays, which is highlighting basically the bid district every third Thursday. And so we do have an open mic night in the plaza just to keep that foot traffic, helping with that foot traffic downtown, and then also promoting the downtown bid businesses. And then we still have rentals. July will be just as busy. Obviously, we have the Hub City Concert Series, for Roger event. So a lot of people, it's a, Marshfield Insurance has a lot of organizations and people in the community that help out with and participate in For Roger, and they decided to move their event afterwards the plaza this year. So that is good to see that different types of organizations and community events are utilizing that space. We're actually bringing in a national known band for that. So it's kind of fun to see national acts actually coming to, Marshfield, Wisconsin, and those bands are excited to do it. This is more of an intimate feel. So the space is definitely being utilized in the best way when it comes to entertainment. Some other, we have an artisan market coming up, and that's with the education station. And so just really making sure that those partnerships with the businesses downtown and beyond are happening. August, we have a couple of special events and then some rentals, and then that's when we'll end the concert series this year. There's still things that are being added to September. October, we'll partner with Main Street again. For the Hollow Week, we'll have events at the plaza, and then also utilize our other parks as well with luminary hikes. December, we have the holiday activities, decorate, and then also hopefully kick off the ice skating rink. That usually happens after Christmas or before, just around the Christmas or New Year time span. And that obviously all depends on when it will get cold. So that's the plaza side. It's definitely staying busy. With the new position, the transition, also bringing other events to our parks. So we did the luminary hikes in February with Cabin Fever month, I would say, and that went over really, really well. We planned could only have 3 because of weather, but we saw attendance, even for a brand new event, upwards of 200 to 300 people at those luminary hikes. So we're looking forward to bringing that back again. I'm also helping with the Wild Wednesdays, working with Sarah, the zoo manager, to do more at Wildwood, utilize it in different ways. And so I did plan all of the Wild Wednesdays this year, and so far those are going really, really well. Again, between the 2 sessions, we have around 200 people that show up. So very well attended, educational, smiles on a bunch of kids' faces and adults too. I can tell you that for sure. Other park activities in Wildwood, again, working with Sarah on maybe bringing more to Wildwood, and that can even include bringing in civic groups. I actually hosted Kiwanis there yesterday. Sarah did a nice private tour. I'm hosting young professionals there next week. So just really trying to get those civic groups into the parks, into the zoo, and make sure that, we're utilizing that in different ways. And then other rec programs as well. I've only been in this position for 6 months, and so we don't have a long list under that Parks and Rec category yet, but by next year, I think that will grow quite a bit. And so then other contributions with my role is building businesses and organization relationships. This is including the rental events that we have, the third Thursdays, artisan market. Also making sure that downtown businesses are getting the benefit of the plaza events. And that includes food trucks, our local food trucks. I did have someone reach out to me that I work with very closely. And she had mentioned, sent me a message saying, we do appreciate the work that you do. The events that you put on make a huge difference, the success of our business. And so it's really great to see that because we do try to work exclusively with those local businesses, and and food trucks, they're at most of our events. And so they're really seeing that impact. We helped Cambray's also kick off their food truck in February when we had them at the Luminary Hikes. So we're really trying to make sure we're utilizing our local businesses and promoting them as well. We're also promoting Marshfield, the city, through advertising of our events and working very closely with them. And that's not only local advertisement, but it's regional advertisement as well. We do work with Midwest Communications, and they do a lot of radio ads for our events at Wenzel Plaza. Other contributions is acquiring sponsorship revenue for events. And that's something that's really important to me to make sure that it's obviously a dual purpose. Sponsorships are meant to get people's name out. And if we have really successful events, that can be really successful for our sponsorships. So far this year, we've received around $17,000 in sponsorships for the events happening at Wenzel Family Plaza. So hopefully that continues to grow and we can continue to bring in, like I said, quality entertainment. Also providing support to our partners through events. Obviously, I work very closely with Main Street, Chamber of Commerce, Visit Marshfield. And then also supporting the Parks and Rec office. When I'm not doing other things, I'm in the office also making sure that my help is being utilized in everyday office activities. I would say that you can go to the next slide, Stephen, please. As I asked for the ask, this is a video promotion that we put together for our concert series. The other thing that I want to do is just promote and utilize our parks within our community, and that's what we're going to keep trying to do with bringing more fun events and active events, not only for our community, but hopefully visitors alike, to bring them here to Marshfield. And so with that, as discussed, the ask is $35,000, and that is down from $50,000 from the last 2 years. So with that, I can entertain any questions anyone has.
Questions? I've had 2 interactions with business owners in the last 2 weeks that pointed to the plaza as being a big positive thing that was done in the community. So yeah, you're getting noticed. So that's good.
I love to hear that, Bill. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Other questions? Are we, do you know if we're still under contract to do? I mean, originally we had a contract, right? To support this. So
I would have to follow up with Steve on that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
do you remember?
I thought it was maybe a yearly, or I just presented yearly, or it was a 3-year.
There was a change.
There was
that
a
we made
change.
when you went permanent with Parks and Rec. So I know that, but I don't remember what
Was
the
it 3 years?
duration of that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still present and
Yes.
give it or take it away.
Where are we? Where are we in the 3 years?
Year one.
We're in year 1, okay.
Okay. Neat. It's good to see people down there. It's good to see kids running through the water feature.
Agreed. Even the passive times are really still utilized. A lot of gatherings and picnics and family time.
Go ahead, Ann.
One quick question for you, Nikki, is
Yeah.
you kind of mentioned this, but you're doing more for some of the other parks. Have you been thinking about how that role will be expanded to start promoting events at other places?
That's a great question. We do promote, are you talking more advertising, like the outside advertisements?
I'm talking actually kind of both, the
Okay.
advertising, but just actually getting events, because that's one of my big things. Is
Yeah.
and I've shared that at other times with you, but just seeing our parks full of people having events,
Yeah.
and not just at the zoo, Wildwood, Columbia. I mean, we have a lot of great quality of life. So how do we get that quality of life
Yeah, and I think that as as I do progress in this position and get just some more time under my belt, we'll definitely utilize the other parks. I was really excited, when we had the luminary hikes, we used Hamas and Weber. And those are parks that probably are only used by neighborhoods or people that want to go out. And that provided an opportunity for even people like myself who have never hiked. I had never hiked Hamas before, and I thought, this is great. It gives people the opportunity to see what we have. And so I would love to add more perks. We're actually adding another luminary hike during Halloween. But is definitely the plan to utilize. Is we have 21 parks in Marshfield, and we obviously want to highlight those. So yes, is hopefully by next year I can give you more of an idea of what activities, but it is on the plan.
My wife attended the one at Hamas Park, and she came home. She goes, "You wouldn't believe the number of people that were there."
It was a lot.
Yeah.
I was very excited to see how many people. We'll see first year out. The weather was beautiful though. And we had fire pits, food trucks, hot cocoa. So it was a great event. A lot of work to put out all of the luminary bigs, but definitely worth it to see the smiles.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any other presentations, any other asks? That should be it, right? Okay, I was just thinking, I'm looking at the crowd and I should have it right. All right. All right. On to the next one then, the discussion of the possible implementation of West 2nd Street redevelopment plan. So we had the plan presented to us, and right now it's out for approval through the CDA, correct? And that's coming up real soon?
So it actually, the CDA approved the plan and the creation of redevelopment district number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So the district boundaries, they did approve a resolution for both of those.
Mm-hmm.
It went through the council at the June 28th Common Council meeting. The council approved the plan also. So now the next step, the final step of the approval is to go back to the CDA just for ratification of the plan.
Okay,
And
so
then-
there were no substantial changes or anything?
No, there was some good input from the public, at the public hearing that the CDA held. And from the council, we tried to incorporate some of your input too, but no substantial changes. We did incorporate the input in the appendix and mentioned it though.
No. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think the purpose of today was to, after we had heard the plan, was the general consensus was this is a pretty good piece of work, but now what? So I think that's really the conversation today is meant to revolve around what do we want to see and how do we get it to move forward, assuming that it will be approved at the CDA and are ratified by the CDA. So thoughts, ideas, concerns, things that you think could be moved forward and how. So. Go ahead, Ken.
I just, I've been thinking about this project on and off. I've been getting input from people around the community. And they asked me, well, what are my thoughts on it? I said, yeah, it's a great idea. To implement it is the big problem, And I said, I think it starts with the Weinbrenner property. Because I believe that property probably is going to be available to us first. And the reason is that to get the area developed, you got to have people there. And if you get the housing developed there and you get the people there, it'll help facilitate other small little entities, the coffee shops, the restaurants, salmon shops, whatever it is going to be. But they can't survive without people there. We have to have the people there first. So if I was to lead this project, I would focus on the Weinbrenner property first. Get that developed, and then eventually the city garage property, and then acquiring the private properties in between the Baltus and the city garage. But I truly believe that that's the direction that should be focused on, is getting the Weinbrenner property developed.
So You mentioned the city garage. Has there been any forward movement on the city garage project at this point?
So there have been discussions between the city and the county, and I think there is interest on both sides, and I'm sure Adam can weigh in too. He's pretty familiar also. But we do know it's going to be a longer term project. They've had some preliminary discussions, but I wouldn't say that there's a definitive timetable as far as moving forward immediately at this point.
I'll just add, I agree. I think the appetite for both the county and the council seems positive. The question will be how you bond for something like that, because it's going to mean a new city garage. So I think really we need to have more conversations between the county and city on how you would structure that type of bonding between two levels of government or two units of government. But I would also just like to say, I agree to a point with Mr. Bargander, but I also think looking at this plan, there's a lot of moving parts to it. And depending on what happens first, because there's so many moving parts, I think ideally, yes, I would agree, Weinbrenner's, but if the city garage happens more quickly, that's a prime piece of real estate for development and looking at a lot of different options there. I mean, and there's also, in my opinion, some low-hanging fruit. I mean, the city already has the old Baltus station. I know the police department is currently using that, but that could be something that if the right opportunity presents itself, you could easily take that existing property that we already have under ownership and do something with. So my bigger concern is to use the quote, who's on first, and who's actually going to lead this project and who's going to push it. Because if we don't have a person or a group that's actively advocating and pushing this forward, it's going to just be a great plan that collects dust on someone's shelf or, never sees the light of day because it's staying on someone's computer or laptop. So my biggest concern is I think we as a board need to have some oversight of it. So I would like to see this become an ongoing agenda item. But then I also think we need to find either someone, and maybe that's the next economic development director, or someone else who can be that liaison to the economic development board to really oversee this project so we know that we can bring it to fruition. Thank you.
So you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. Really, what I've found as we've worked on these projects along the way is if we don't have a person who's responsible for moving it forward and being what I call the champion of the project, nothing gets done. So we have many items on the EDP agenda that have been on there for a long time and have not moved forward because there is no champion in place to move them forward. And there are other higher priorities. In this case, it looks like this is a fairly high priority / opportunity for the city. Is this one of those where we step back and say, should we tailor a specific position to move this forward as a project? And I throw that out as an idea. What do you all think? And I don't think this is a full-time job by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it needs to have a person who's actually responsible for. There are many different parts to this that could all be moved simultaneously, but each one of them requires contacts with individuals, developers / other. So what does that look like? So, Adam.
I like the idea. Part of me just wonders, instead of a person or a position, is this even a collaboration? Because I see a lot of even moving parts as far as our focus. I mean, this plan talks about housing. It also talks about some recreation, quality of life aspects. I mean, and I know this isn't necessarily in the plan, but I think even that city garage, I mean, it talks about a concert venue, but could that even be used for some type of recreational use? I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities and possibilities. And so I think you could start to almost bring maybe a group of, for lack of a better word, experts. Like, can we bring an expert in more into housing? Can we bring maybe someone in recreation? Can we bring someone with your background from the banking? How are we going to do this? How are we going to finance this? I mean, I just think we need to find people who possibly can come together to make this happen. I think a position is good, but I'm almost wondering if we need more than just a position.
I think you'd almost need to have somebody as a committee to steer what that person should be working on. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Dave Krause. I guess I agree with both parts of it, but from a perspective of if I get a phone call from an interested developer, whose name am I going to give him that champions the project? We need to have one person that is like the contact person in the city. If it's a city employee, the development director, someone that I could say, call Jim Smith at this number, he'll get you started. And if that person, then I think the idea of having a committee underneath that, but we need to have one way in to get at least the information out. And here's our plan, and someone that is that individual. And I don't know if that, I always thought, when we first started those conversations, when Josh Miller was on the group, Josh Miller, in my mind, was the guy that if I had Jim Smith from Milwaukee call about a development opportunity, I'd give him Josh's name and he would run with it. Who is that next Josh Miller? And I don't know where the city's at in that hiring that next Josh Miller. But then Josh Miller would then have that committee of experts. I agree, because there's so many opportunities that different various expertises need to be involved in developing the various venues. So I guess that would be the question on where the city's at, and ideally that would, I guess, be where it would that in person would be.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I mean, I'm not saying don't do a position. I just think you need to have a position with a group of people. I just look at even just the housing standpoint. And no one person is great at everything. So have them have their team of people. But I agree. I mean, I think one person, our problem is, who's that one person? Josh is not here. Steve Barg is doing multiple positions. Steve Wiley is doing multiple positions. That's our biggest problem. And so, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you create the team of experts first? Do you find the position? I totally agree we need a position, but just from a council standpoint, who that person is a big question mark for me.
Can I ask, Stephen, you may be more aware of, where's the city at in hiring that replacement? And, and ideally, and I think I'd mentioned to Karen one day, it's, here's a great interview question. Here's our plan, Mr. Applicant. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to implement it? And that would, to be 90% of the person's interview is take this plan, figure it out, come back, give us your plan. And if you got a good plan, we'll hire you, kind of thing. I don't know if there's been that kind of communication. I don't know.
Yes, as far as where we're at, we had posted the position a couple of times. The first person turned us down for personal reasons. That person would have been from out of state. So we went back, reposted it a second time. Didn't get any new applicants at that point. So in discussion with the council, with Steve, we ended up, Steve is working with a search firm to find potential applicants that might be a good fit. And I guess they look at, passive job seekers who are not actively looking, but they have those connections. So we're hopeful that we'll get some good applicants, that we can at least look at. We also had our new HR director start this week, Tuesday. So she will be involved too with that process. Right now, Steve, myself, Dan Konech, and Jennifer Selensky, we're kind of working together to try to move forward with some of these things. When things come in, people either talk to me and or Steve. If I have to, I usually bring the other more experienced staff on board. And then we together have been kind of tackling, requests as they come in. So I'd say between myself and Steve at this point, and then obviously when we get a new director on board, that person would take an active role at that point.
So Go ahead.
Go ahead first.
The next question I had is, as far as the situation with the Weinbrenners, so how long before their lease runs out?
I believe it is going to be, I thought 2025, it was going to be done. And so in the next few years, they're going to be looking to move from that building. It might actually be sooner, but for sure by 2025, they'll be out of there. We've got a potential site in the city here that they're interested in, that Steve's been in talks with them.
Did you have a question?
Not really a question, more of a comment. I'm on a roll today, so I go back to the position. I mean, the ideal position is the one that's completely open right now, and that's Josh's, the position that Josh was in. And I'm going to say this, and this is definitely a compliment to Josh, is he was very gifted at, in my opinion, juggling a lot of different things.
Herding cats.
Yeah, because it's a management role. In many ways, it's still kind of there's still a piece of that planning that he has to do. It's economic development. That's one of those unique positions that encompasses so much. And he was very gifted, in my opinion, and that's why I think it was a loss for the city when we lost him, because he could juggle those things very well. And what I worry about is when you look for that position, do you find someone who is, excuse me, as good at juggling that? Or do we, and maybe this is a longer term discussion, do we look at eventually a position under that position that is even geared more towards assisting in economic development activities, taking on some of these special projects specifically that is under the development services director. And I think that's maybe a conversation we need to have. And I just wanted to throw that out based on what you brought up.
So I don't disagree with what you just said. I mean, in the end, our list of projects was way too long for Josh to make meaningful headway on and still do the rest of his job. So somewhere along the way, if we do want to move some of the projects forward, I think we're going to have to invest in more labor to get it done. And this particular project really seems like it lends itself well to being a good basis for doing that, because we would be able to see meaningful movement in an area of the community that would be improved very substantially, I'm thinking. So, but it appears we're kind of, from a time standpoint, we're kind of at a crossroads that we're going to have to sit tight on. Is that kind of what I'm getting from this conversation? Good. Yeah.
I mean, we just heard the budget request. What is the budget looking like for next year for economic development? Has anyone started that?
So the tally of this is going to be, or just for the presentations from today, is going to be right around the 200 mark, isn't it? So do we know what the dollar amount of the inflow was from the utilities? 400? Did I hear 4? No, I didn't. 281. So, okay, so it'll come to a tally on the
So last year, it was 195,158.
for the items that were approved today. Now we're actually, the Main Street's actually asking for more.
And then
And then there are others.
Parks is less. So yeah, yeah,
Oh, so it's actually come out pretty close.
really close. Yeah.
So obviously meaningful projects along the way. There's probably going to be some budgetary dollars available to do those. But we'll know better when we see the final tally next month at the next monthly meeting. That information will all be laid out for us in detail. So.
Yep, and Steve's been, I think, working on the budget.
Yep.
So he'll know, and he'll be able to provide that information.
One more question.
Go ahead.
When is it going before CDA again? Can you remind me of the date?
It would be going at their July meeting, so I'm just going to pull up. It'd be the fourth Thursday in July, so I think let's see here. 28th, I believe.
That sounds right. I guess my recommendation would be, since maybe let this get through CDA on the 28th, the following week is early August. I'm sure we're meeting right around then. Keep this agenda item on the agenda and maybe start to have this become an evolving conversation about a position. And hopefully by then we'll have a better idea too of our budget and we can have even a more detailed conversation.
So I think one of the things you said was come up with a subcommittee to really help this project along. Well, who are those people? So as we head into next month's meeting, think about who would be helpful in the specific, elements of the project to help move those things along. So unfortunately, I'm Lyle, go ahead.
I'd like to preface my statement, or question rather. I think the Second Street Corridor project looks amazing. It looks like the Main Street that appears everybody in the city has been wanting for a long period of time. My question is, what type of discussion or thought process has gone into the long-term effects of our actual Main Street? What happens, if anything, to that property? So in other words, from the presentation I've seen, it's this beautiful, grandiose, lots of foot traffic, like I say, outdoor dining. It's got all the things, a little city into itself. Has there been discussion about or thought in terms of long-term, what does that do to our actual Main Street, and what happens to those properties and that type of thing?
Haley? Go ahead, if you would, please.
So part of the planning process for the consultants was very much taking into account the ideal Main Street for our Main Street and never taking away from that. So they developed the plan with that in mind every step of the way. I think every single planning meeting that they had that was mentioned, because someone would bring it up, whether it was a concerned business owner or someone on the committee itself that was concerned with that. That's why in the end, the last iteration was really focused on residential, as well as using that larger space, possibly the city garage, for something like an entertainment venue or something that we don't have already, like a very, very large office building to suit a larger employer. So with that in mind, this person that we would ideally hire or have, they would be looking for recruiting the types of businesses that would possibly suit those uses and not completely overhaul and do a second Main Street, but complement Main Street.
I think originally, as we've been viewing this, the objective is to get people to be in the downtown. And if they live in the downtown, that's actually better. Because it'll draw people in from a retail and restaurant standpoint and allow for some synergies as, right now where people have to travel. If they live there, they would use the services more frequently. So as a complement to Main Street, having all those people within a 2-block proximity to the core of the Main Street, I think would be probably a pretty positive thing along the way. So clearly proximity of the Second Street to the clinic, which is a large employer, and from a housing standpoint would be very positive from their standpoint, is my guess. And it is actually, strangely, we've had recently a lot of requests for property of this type. In particular, I got one outstanding right now with Steve Bard right now. So the question really comes in many cases, how fast can we move to accommodate some of the people who really do want to come into the downtown and be a positive force for the development of the downtown. So, yep. Other questions, concerns, ideas? Otherwise, I think, yeah, well, put your thinking hats on, think about who would be a positive influence in moving that forward, and then we'll talk about it more as it relates to the budgetary process for the upcoming year. Gordon, I can see you there. I'm struggling to remember to keep looking at you. So if you have any comments, just pipe in, please. So.
No comments. I've been listening. I think that we've been asking the right questions in terms of kind of who can help on the city to facilitate, and, and the reality is around where do you get started? Some of that's what do developers think is most effective and who wants to take the project on. So I think we're having a good discussion, and, sorry I couldn't get there in person, or if I got there in person, I would have been 20 minutes late. And so I took on time versus delayed.
All right. Yes, I think part of that conversation is going to be who are the developers we want to talk to? Is there people who would already be intrinsically interested in Marshfield to start with? What does that look like? So things to think about as we head into the next meeting. So, all right, I'm going to move on to the next item, which is a request for additional facade improvement funds for the for 500 South Central. So.
Thank you. So actually, I am wondering if we can flip 9 and 10.
I was thinking, yeah, because it looks like number 9 is part of number 10, if I saw it correctly. Is that correct?
Yep. And number 9 is going to depend on whether we approve or not additional funds for the program period. So if we could flip those two.
Yes.
And then if that's fine with you.
Yep. Evident.
Okay. So on April 25th, so a few months back already, the Main Street Design Committee met with the 3 applicants. There were 3 property owners that applied for facade improvement funds for 2022. The owners of 107 South Central, 315 South Central, and 500 South Central. So we met with all of them, kind of had them talk, about what work they were proposing to do with their properties, timetable, et cetera. And we were supportive of all projects. We think that they all have good intentions and good plans for their properties. I had in your staff reports or in your packets, and Steve included my memo about these 3 projects and the funds that were requested. So one of the projects, 315 South Central, so off the mat yoga, that got approved. It was pretty straightforward. There was a second project, the Howard's property at 500 South Central. They are asking for a little more than $40,000, so $41,590 for their work. They were originally asking for $59,400, and we said, well, we only had $60,000 period approved this year, and that was way over the $40,000 maximum. So we just thought that $41,590, so a match for the front facade instead of the whole project that was proposed at the time would be more realistic. And then the third project is for Danny Anderson for her record shop there. She's looking to do windows and signage. And that when we discussed with her, she has a historic building. So we just wanted to work with her a little bit to make sure that whatever work she does is sensitive to the historic nature of the building. And she was on board with that. She was very supportive of that. We're asking for $30,000 additional dollars for the program this year because we want to be able to accommodate all 3 projects. Right now, we'd be able to accommodate almost 2. The Howards, we'd be a little short, just with the $60,000 that you originally approved, I think, back in March. But if we approve $30,000 additional dollars, we could accommodate the Howards, and then also I think we would be able to accommodate Danny's project as well, or at least put a big dent in hers. So that's what we're asking for with this request, is for the additional $30,000 of funding. Nick Cum from Marshfield Utilities actually weighed in a while back, and he just wanted to mention to me that the 2022 Marshfield utility dividend amount increased from a budget amount of approximately $236,000 to $282,505. So that was an increase of approximately $46,000, which would more than cover this $30,000 request. So I just wanted to add that too. I believe he's back there.
What we just heard is a pay for.
So I appreciate him bringing that up to me, and I would have brought this up, but, since we didn't meet the past few months, just wanted to put that out there too.
Is everybody familiar with all 3 of the projects along the way? Everybody have a look at it at a time?
The 500.
Sure. Let me see here. Forget the tenant that's in that building right now. Just might take a second to pull it up here. Because all of them submitted photographs with their application, so at least I can show you, you'll be able to see it here. So I will share this here. Should be able to see coming up here. So it's this building here, Burns Insurance, yeah. So they want to remove this false front and they would restore it back. They have some older photos of the building. So, some of the storefront here, restoring the original openings up on the second floor. We believe that it would be a substantial improvement to the appearance now.
I concur. Yes.
Stephen, what was the overall cost of the project?
So I think they were estimating $118,800 for the entire project, for front facade work, some of the work along the side on this building, all the work that's proposed for this building, a little over 118, close to 119,000. And like I said, they requested 59,400, because it's a 50% match, so dollar for dollar match. But just due to the fact that we have a max of 40,000, and then you guys had approved 60,000, we thought that that was, not as realistic. So they said, as an alternative, could we request half of the cost of doing the front facade? And that would be that $41,590. And that's part of the next item.
So would those would those be windows on the front? Is that on the lower level?
I believe so. I believe that would be storefront there.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotta admit, I really like the updated look a lot better. So,
and this is sideways, but you can get a sense.
Okay.
Let's see here. Sure. There it is. So historically, what it would have looked like. So trying to go back to that.
Oh.
Or similar.
All right. What do y'all think? What's your thoughts on this one? So essentially the 30,000 would literally come out of, what is it, the 205 fund or 206 or whatever what do we call that?
I believe, yeah, I forget which, 205? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So.
Do we have budget to cover the increased costs?
I believe so, Gordon. Yep.
So I go back to, I hate to say it, well, no, I don't. I really actually very much like the facade program. I like seeing what has been accomplished in the Main Street district already by the funds that have been put forward. And I think it's kind of like a little mini TIF district. Obviously, it doesn't pay for itself completely, but certainly the upgrade of the values in the properties has been helpful from a tax collection standpoint to return the funds along the way back to the city. So from my perspective, obviously, that's not going to be a dollar for dollar opportunity, but certainly it's better than the properties deteriorating and not being as attractive. When people come into town, pretty impressive downtown right now so far. There's a couple properties that obviously still need some love along the way, but I'm kind of excited about this. So from my perspective, I would be inclined to do it. I see some hesitancy on the part of Adam. No, okay. Go ahead.
No hesitancy. I support it since it's budgeted. I mean, since we have money, I'm all for it. When you first brought it up, and the first question is how we're going to pay for it. But since there's a plan to pay for it, there is no hesitancy.
Go ahead, Kim.
I've always supported the facade program. I think it's a great idea. It's something that you can really see where your dollars went. I mean, you look downtown and these buildings look a heck of a lot more historical. And being on the Historic Preservation Commission here in the city, every time I see one of these buildings restored to its previous look from the 1930s or 20s or 1800s, whatever it may be, it surely helps with our promotion of our historical downtown district. And right now, the Historic Commission is looking, our direction is historical tourism. So if we can make our downtown look more historic, one building at a time, it'll go along with our historic tourism campaign that we will probably be implementing in 2023. So I think Stephen can relate to that quite a bit, what we've been talking about there. So yeah, I like the idea. I don't like those 70s facades redos. They're scary looking. And you look, they're looking more out of place every time we do one of these. Those facades look more out of place. It's like, who dropped those in from space? So yeah, I'm all for this. Especially if we have funding available, I think we should go ahead. Howards have done so much for the downtown, and let's just do this.
So the only question I really had as I looked at this, should we be doing 41,000 and some change, or should we stick to the original $40,000 limitations that we had in the original program? So that's a question I throw back to all of you. What's your preference?
And we as staff, we had that same question. That's why we brought it to you. Steve and I discussed it because we just amended our guidelines. We worked with Kaylee earlier this year to do that. And we just want to make sure, because we could have similar situations come up in the future, and we don't want to have a situation where, okay, you approved the Howards, but then you didn't approve me, so what's going on? So that's why we didn't want to make that decision administratively. We felt that it'd be more appropriate to refer it to you for discussion for that portion also.
Gordon, you had a question?
Yeah, so I know we're saying we have it in the budget. I guess related to that is, if we spend it on this, does that mean we don't have dollars to do something else? So is there a trade being made here around this project versus something else that's in the hopper, or some other initiative that we're going to need dollars for? I just want to make sure that if we are consciously making a prioritization around what we're doing, that we understand what we're deprioritizing.
So right now, I don't believe there's anything else that was left that was a contingency project that is hanging right now, is there?
I'm not aware of anything at this point.
I don't believe so. So that's a really good question, though. So yeah, we're going to throw money into this and not do something that was on the project list. I think part of our problem right now is without a Josh, probably a lot of our projects are probably going to get stalled out and moved into next year, is my guess. So I'm suspicious that we probably have excess funds available and are probably in a really good position to probably fund this one right now. And that's a lot of probablys.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So, Paul?
Just one question regarding the amount, the 40,000 max. I guess my view of that would be, if we want to keep a maximum and we think that 40 is the right max, I wouldn't go over it. I don't want to create an exception. However, if we're willing to say we'll increase it to 45 or 50 as our max, then you're within the guideline. But I prefer that we spend the 40 unless we choose to change the max.
I actually concur with what you just said, because that opens the door to a lot larger projects that we frankly don't have the funding for. So that would be my recommendation. So along the way. But that being said, you need a motion on, to do the 30,000.
Yep, we'll need that first. Yep.
So do we? Paul is in motion for 30.
Motion to approve the 30,000 and increase funding.
Do we have a second? Adam?
All right, roll call. Bill Senholm.
Yes.
Lyle Lane.
Yes.
Paul Kapla,
Yes.
Mike O'Reilly, Gordon Edwards,
Yes.
Adam Fisher,
Yes.
and Ken Bargander.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, almost cut off there, so. All right, so that really takes care of 9 and 10.
So it takes care of 9, and then, I guess if we can get a motion on the other one, just so we have a decision one way or another.
For the approval of the other projects, is
Yep.
it? Yep.
For the approval of that 41,590.
Okay. All for 40?
Sure, I'll go for it again. Move that we approve the 500 South Central project at $40,000.
Lyle, second. Roll call?
Bill Senholm,
Yes.
Lyle Lang,
Yes.
Paul Kapla,
Yes.
Mike O'Reilly,
Yes.
Gordon Edwards,
Yes.
Adam Fisher,
Yes.
and Ken Bargander.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Now we're on to updates on various projects, acquisition of land for industrial use.
So that was closed on, I think, I forget if it was June 30th. So we do have that land available now.
What is the next step in that process?
So I think right now, I think it's part of, I forget if it's TID 12 at this point. And I believe we do have a lease agreement, at least for the UW to keep farming it at this point. But we are looking at potential, for businesses that want to come in there. Obviously, we'd have to look at extending utilities if anybody was to locate in that portion that we just acquired. So it's not necessarily immediately development ready. We'd have to look at extending streets or utilities there.
So Karen, from your perspective, you would want to see a plan like that developed in the not too distant future. Is that a fair assessment of the situation?
Yeah, I think that's really got to be the next step. I did have a map of it kind of developed through David Bueller here at the city, because that was some of the land we provided to the state for this RFP. But I think if we can have sort of some mapping on it and some information, we can start distributing that to any contacts we have on the state website and through other partners. So I think that would be great.
So
To have that
to
available.
get utilities installed and get it to the point where it's user ready, that is a fairly long process.
There's some cost with it too, and I can bring that back by next meeting, what those costs would be. I know I've talked with Dan Connect and Josh on it in the past, and it seemed to me it was, and you have to have certain tests done. You have to make sure that it's pretty much ready to go. So there is cost involved with it, but then you also get some marketing efforts and it's developmental ready. But even if we don't have that right now, I think we can start marketing it. It's just a basic sheet and people are looking for space.
But theoretically, if you had a person who wanted to come to town right now, you've got a 2-year window before they're in a position to be in their building. Is that a fair assessment? 2+ years. You got to extend the utilities plus all of that.
That would be like back to the people that need to do it. If the line is close and depending where they were going to be stationed, I let Nick deal with that.
I think a few of the challenges obviously are dependent, the utilities are really sized and dependent on the industry that would move in there, right? If it's someone that's heavy user of electricity or water, obviously then the infrastructure has to be sized accordingly. So you kind of get into a chicken and egg thing. If we build it to a certain spec and it doesn't meet a potential developer, then we may be hurting ourselves. The other issue, and we're all dealing with, this is supply chain. Transformers are right now over a year lead time. So something of a larger size, we have some stuff in stock, but depending on who comes in and what they need, that could right into that 2-year window that you're talking about. And I'm sure building materials and other things would play into that.
Okay. So if somebody's looking to do a building right now, they're probably are looking for sites that already have the infrastructure that are fair. So really somewhere along the way, the chicken or the egg discussion has got to be broached, or does it? Otherwise, what we found at the bank in leasing our building is if it was blank space, nobody's interested, we finish it off, boom, it goes fast. It's the same thing with industrial space, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you look back at like the Mill Creek Business Park, obviously that had a very set style of looking at businesses. So we were able to forecast load and size our infrastructure accordingly. Here, you could build it really, really large, so you could get a lot of people. If you could have anyone could come, but then if you have someone that only needs 10% of that what you built, you've overbuilt. So now the city developers paid for a lot that they didn't necessarily need front end. So it's kind of it's a deeper discussion that
I think like with Mill Creek, you know, the roads, the infrastructure was in, the roads were in, but then that limited you as to how large the projects could be too. And we had some bigger spots available, which was great. This is a wide open landscape, so, but I'll check into that a little more from the state's purview too, as to, you know, how close could we get to being developmental ready and then, or developmentally ready to move a project forward without knowing what type of industry it's going to be. I would imagine heavier duty at this point.
Is this going to end up being a property that is attractive for some local business that's already here that's looking for a major expansion?
I think it could be because we are out of larger tracks for heavier industrial. And also there's a possibility of rail being extended on that site, you know, just because of the proximity of it already with PCA and things, so.
Excellent. Other question? All right, next one is lot sales.
I just have Steve's memo that closing has occurred on 12 lots. A couple others are now in the process. Ashley's not here to talk. So I don't have any more info. My spreadsheet hasn't changed.
So then the new subdivision, 21st in Washington, the update that was in there, which is it's moving forward. And
Yeah, so that is.
Do you know how close we are on that?
Said bids are due 7/13.
Okay.
So that's a big thing. Once we get those in, I guess, then we'll know in terms of, have a sense of the cost for infrastructure at least.
So he put on here also possible redevelopment of Marshfield Mall. We really haven't had a lot of conversation in this committee on that.
Yeah,
is there a short version of that?
So that actually, I've been a little bit involved with, along with Steve, Dan, and Jennifer from the city here. So we've been talking to the current owner of that mall. And he is interested in, you know, they've got some tenants lined up. They are looking at doing work, pretty extensive work up there, you know, renovation, redoing the parking, et cetera. So we've had a number of closed sessions with the council in terms of what dollar amount the council is comfortable providing in terms of city assistance for that project. So we've gone back and forth with the developer. I think it sounds like it's looking pretty positive that it'll move forward. Steve's been in pretty good contact with Ned Brickman, who's the developer for that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Development Services Director Recruitment. I think we've already covered that one, so you don't need to do anything. And the Winter Sports Fundraising Feasibility Study, I can fill in on that one. We have received the final feasibility study from the Baker Consulting Group. It was positive, but not quite as positive as what we were hoping it to come back as. Reality is there's some legwork to be done right now on identifying potential large contributors. And if there are potential large contributors, we'll probably go forward. Otherwise, it may die an ugly death. So I would say it's a positive, but we've still got some room to go there. So any questions? Any questions on any of the items that we've gone through here? I went through pretty fast. So go ahead, Paul.
Just one on the lots. I know we get repaid for the money that we invested.
Mm-hmm.
Does that happen on an ongoing basis, or is the money repaid at the end, or where are we at with our budget? Because, you know, that replenishes our funds.
So I do not have, those funds go right back into the 205, correct? As they come in?
As they come in.
I'd have to look into that actually.
So I don't have that's a good question. We should.
I'm just curious as to what our bank balance
for next month to see how those funds are actually coming in. So far it looks like things are actually rolling pretty decent there. So that's a good question. All right. All right. Discuss economic needs of the community. Any ideas, questions, concerns, things that you want to talk about? This is the kind of the brainstorming session of the meeting here, meant to bring together good ideas and into work. So thoughts, questions, ideas? Go ahead, Ken.
I think there was some discussion before I got on this board about low income, or not, maybe not low income, but affordable housing here in Marshfield. They were talking about developing this parking lot back here by Associated Bank. Was that low income, or what kind of housing development was that for? Was that affordable housing, low income housing?
It could have been done as affordable housing. It could be done as a private development with regular rents, or even a condo development for that. It's pretty much open. Although, after the last conversation that Josh had, he really didn't seem too excited about the dynamics after he talked with the people who had the buildings around it from a park, because what it is half that parking lot. So.
I know that particular location probably was not ideal, but I've kind of scouted a few locations, and we can't talk about it here, but right now, because, the sensitivity of purchasing properties. But I still think it should be something on our agenda to do. We've taken a lot of steps towards other housing developments, but we haven't taken any steps towards low income, trying to get people out of Parkview Terrace Mobile Home Park. That's what I'd like to really do. If any of us have ever driven through there, it's atrocious. It's terrible. Like I said, I've identified a few, and, something we talk about on a closed session, talk about these possibilities of acquiring some of these properties. And I think there's the three I've got in mind, I think are really have a lot of possibilities. So I think that's something we could put on in a future agenda, I should say, where we talk about that, maybe in closed session, bring that up. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Adam.
Just going off that, I like the idea of having that discussion. And I know the council has talked a lot about affordable housing multiple times. So I think that's something we need to look at. But I have a love-hate relationship with that term because, in today's market, it almost seems like a $350,000 home is now becoming affordable. If you want, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not in the lending business, but if I'm taking out a mortgage, I just on a home, I'm going, it's probably going to end up being a $300,000 to $350,000 home. So I look at this and go, I really feel, and I've said this before, I think the city of Marshfield and this board need to define what we mean when we say affordable housing. Because when some people hear that, they go low income. When some people hear that, they're thinking maybe duplexes. What does that? And so I don't want to beat a dead horse because I've said this before, but we need to define what we as a city and as an economic development board, how do we define it?
So so there is a technical definition of affordable housing provided by the state and the federal government. So, and that really speaks to low income housing and then potentially tax credit type of developments, which I don't think we've seen our fair share of those in this area at all. In fact, I can't even remember the last one that was done here. Does anybody? And they're being built every year. So the reality is we need to drag in a developer who has experience in developing low to moderate income housing projects using tax credits to help us with our problem, because we do have a problem in that area, no doubt about it. So, but
well, thank you for that, because that helps a lot. as some of you know, I am also on the Wood County Board, and Wood County is actually part of a pilot program with 2 other counties looking at low-income housing and how to provide, especially low-income housing for people in vulnerable situations. And so I'm actually on that task force, so I think that would be an interesting thing to maybe even have someone come back to this board and give a report on.
Dave?
As far as low housing, part of my duties as otherwise described in my job thing, I'm on our CRA committee, our Community Reinvestment Act committee in the bank. And one of the things I do is that every year I survey our counties as far as their fair market rents as it relates to low housing, because if we finance projects that have rents under a certain threshold, I just pulled up the most recent list here. For instance, in Wood County, what would be considered a fair market rent for a 4-bedroom apartment is $1,098 would be kind of that limit. 3-bedroom is $1,029, a 2-bedroom is $810, and a 1-bedroom is $616. Kind of give you an idea of what the federal, and this is off the HUD statistics that we use, the federal statistics as far as what they feel is a fair, a low to moderate income rent level. Just kind of give you an idea of a number that you're talking about when you say like the $300,000 mortgage. Yeah, but the rents now are up to like a 4-bedroom, like I said, almost
Dave,
$1,100.
when you're seeing new projects come in, are the rents, how are they in relation to the numbers you just provided?
They're typically higher when we're seeing like the Nikolai lumber projects going in or the Swiderski projects. They're typically starting at, for a 2-bedroom, 1,000, if not higher, for those new projects being developed. So they're higher than what the federal government has designated as a low income thing. To kind of just give you a perspective of what the government looks like as what a low income rent would be, kind of from that. So, because otherwise it's hard to define what that number is.
So the tax credit facilities, essentially what they do is they use tax credits to buy down the debt portion of the financing of this, thereby allowing the rents to be lower and actually mandating the rents are lower in those types of properties. There are probably 25 to 50 of those done every year in the state of Wisconsin. I might be a little high, but more than 25 that are done on a regular basis, and they're spread all over the state of Wisconsin. But again, I go back, I can't remember the last one that was done here. So I think we should probably look into potentially finding ourselves a developer that'd be interested in going down that road. We do have a situation, I think it was brought up previously by Josh, that we have some opportunities to do those types of projects with TIF districts that will be closing out. We'll be doing a 1-year extension that allows the city to have funds to put into those types of projects. So before he left, he was starting to work on finding those developers and finding those projects and trying, because that gives us a huge leg up in the process, having those funds available. And unfortunately, we're probably at a standstill. Now, the downside of those projects is they have very long processes. Start to finish, you're probably a 3-year project if you find the right person to do it. Between the approval process and the actual construction, it could be longer than 3 years. So those are things you need to get way out ahead of in order to make them actually occur in our community. I think there's clearly a need here. And, from my experience, no matter where you put them, they'll fill instantly. So, and that does provide you with workforce wage and rental rates that allow people to actually fill into the positions that we have in the community. So other questions, thoughts, ideas? So I think that one, again, is probably on hold until we find the development director position filled and move forward.
Yeah, it's probably on hold, but I can just add that when I was in Oshkosh, where I used to work before I was here, we actually had TIF-funded affordable housing programs. They probably looked a little different than what you're maybe thinking about. Ours were more loan-based for owner and rental occupied properties. But the state does have a definition in the statutes. As Bill mentioned, you can extend the life of the TID and you can capture that, and you have to use at least 75% of that, those funds that are captured for affordable housing programs. And affordable housing is defined in the state statute as housing where, the owner or the tenant, they do not spend more than 30% of their income, basically, on housing-related expenses. The state definition is pretty broad. It's pretty open. I don't think they define what housing-related expenses are. So then, that's really up to the community to look to pretty common definitions of housing-related expenses. But that is laid out in the statute. Affordable housing, that threshold will obviously vary for everybody. The more you make, the more that 30% threshold is. Consequently, or conversely, the less you make, obviously the opposite is true. So we always income qualified people for our programs, and I could see something similar happening here. Or like you mentioned, it could be a larger scale project. The loans, they tend to take more administrative oversight, more staff time and staff ability to do that. So just something to keep in mind.
Going back to Adam's confusion on what affordable housing is, reality is if a new house is built and it's occupied by somebody who's already here, typically that's a trade-up situation, which opens up properties available for sale that are at lower price ranges. And it's basically typically a ladder situation where one's moving up, then the one behind at the lower level is moving up, which opens up their house. So any activity we get is a positive activity, typically if there's new construction involved along the way. Especially if it's new construction and they're moving in, that's good. If it's new construction and they're moving up, that's good. New construction at this point is kind of a key factor in the equation. But realistically, I mean, even the numbers we're talking about with the subdivisions that we got rolling here are not going to fill the pipeline for affordable housing that we have right now. So other questions, concerns, ideas, things we should be talking about? All right, economic development activities. Karen, you got anything big that you've done in the last 2 months? Karen will go for this first this time, then Kate.
Nothing real big, but I don't know if this group is aware of it or not, but the state extended the bounce back grants that were available for people going into vacant buildings. So that's a $10,000 grant. I think the report we heard from Wood County is that we had 41 of those since the first of the year. Now they're extended through December, and there's been a lot of interest, and I think that's really been a great program. So I just want to let you know that's moving forward, and we're helping businesses acquire those. So that's the main thing.
Okay. Haley, you got anything big?
With the bounce back grant, we had someone that was interested in a building. I don't know if they're going to follow through, but it was one of those situations where they would never consider opening a business if that money wasn't on the table. So it really is making a difference for people. As far as the Facade program goes, just to create awareness, there is a really large project that people are hoping to do next year. And I don't know if you'd consider raising that limit or not for next year as you're considering the budget, just to be aware of that. I know when we started the program, we had some really heavy hitters kind of starting off, and then we had some slowed projects that were a lot smaller, and it seems like we're starting to pick up again in that next wave. So just be aware of that. And then third Thursdays I'd mentioned, I realized we haven't met in a couple months. So third Thursdays is our initiative June through December, where every third Thursday of the month, there's select businesses that are staying open late, retail until at least 7, and restaurant and entertainment until at least 9. People are being incentivized to visit these places, collect stickers, and then have the opportunity to win prizes related to downtown. Our focus is not to be gimmicky and program this event, but to make it really about what's going on inside of the businesses themselves. So it's really focused on getting people inside stores. So every single store is kind of required to have that open late aspect, and then also do something that would be good for their customers, knowing their own customer base. Some people are doing live music, some people are doing some sort of a discount promotion, some people are hosting vendors, but we're going to just kind of check traffic, check sales numbers, see if it's something that we want to continue past 2022. Studies that have been done through Main Street programs in the past where we always want those doors open later. We really, really want people to just have all downtown open past regular business hours. Super great, but unfortunately, the studies are showing that unless you're doing some sort of special promotion, like a once a month sort of a thing, the traffic just doesn't stay consistently unless you're a food and bev sort of a business. So that's interesting. Other than that, we're getting ready for Hub City Days, and that's taking up a lot of our time. We're excited.
Thank you. Nick, is there anything you want to bring up at this point? No? Anything else? I think we had some suggested items for next agenda. The next meeting is on August 4th. I will not be sure of that. So question is there enough people left for that will be here for potentially for a quorum along the way? We can still move forward. All right, looking good. Otherwise, I would, anything else that anybody wants to talk about? I would accept a motion for adjournment from Adam and a second from Paul, and we're adjourned. Thank you.